Are you looking for an escape from manufactured truth wrapped in selfish agenda? Don't you just want to have a real and raw conversation, all masks and rules aside? That's what you're getting here at Titan Evolution Podcast. Get rid of all the nonsense information and discuss everything under the sun without filters. Listen to real stories of real people who will put your current perspectives to the test, guide you on living the life you truly want, and see everything free from judgment and pretenses. Time to get rid of those unhealthy environments and let your authentic self shine. Here are your hosts, Travis Johnson and Carol Carpenter.
Hi guys, welcome to the show. I am Carol Carpenter, and here's my co-host, the witty and ever so charming Travis Johnson. And today we have a special guest on our podcast, Joshua B. Lee, aka the dopamine dealer of LinkedIn. We'll get into that. In 2014, Josh founded Standout Authority so he could work with entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals humanize their professional or company brand on LinkedIn using an authentic, inspirational engagement with their clients and audience. He's an entrepreneur, business owner, coach, marketer, and author of Balance is Bullshit. There you go. How to successfully integrate work and life. Welcome to the show, Joshua.
Thank you, Carol. Appreciate it, Travis. I'm so glad because we've sent like the bio out before, and people go in and they read like 5 paragraphs. I'm like, dude, like we don't need to read through everything. So thank you for like summarizing it. And I'm sitting here like, God, they're reading the whole fucking thing. I'm like,
dude, I don't do that because my attention span is about like short, ADHD a bit. So I want to get to know like the gist. And So give me the shell, and then I'll crack it open and get to know it.
Awesome. I'm in. Let's do it.
I love how she threatens violence right up front. She's like, I don't want to get to know you. I just want to beat you open and see what gooey stuff is on the inside.
You guys already threatened it. I better cry or else. So
well, we're gonna make you cry, I think, because you're right on the edge. We've talked about this already.
We're gonna have to rebrand. It's gonna be a thing. Yeah.
What's that? Our brand is.
We're gonna have to rebrand now if we're making everyone cry.
Okay, so yeah, we're gonna beat the crap out of all of our guests and make them cry. Oh, I don't think that's gonna work. Let's just say that's not good branding.
You're violent. Did you wake up and choose violence today, Carol?
I did not. Look at this face. I'm super sweet.
That's what people say about my face, and then I start talking, and they're like,
"Oh, we know better."
Shit, here we go. Yeah.
Oh, so Joshua, tell us what makes you a Titan?
It's an interesting question, I mean, because like you guys told me, like, okay, you're gonna have to answer what makes you a Titan. Man, I think for me it's change, right? If I look back, what I used to go, oh, what makes me a Titan was I'll go back in and I'll talk about the companies I built and all the money I did and all those other things. But then I went through a reset in my life, and I think now when I look at that question, I think what makes me a Titan is that I'm true about the different failures, missteps that I made and learn from them, and I share them, and I'm not afraid to be able to do that to others, because one of the biggest things that shifted for me was when I played the Titan role before based on what we're all taught. Honestly, it led me down a path that, had me contemplating my own life and my own existence on this planet. And leaving more money for my kids comparatively to being here. And that shift really was enlightening, that I took back my life and started sharing and making sure that no other person ever felt as alone as I did, trying to be this Titan that we've all been trained to be able to, what they believe that to be.
Well, don't you think a lot of people equate Titan with the amount of money you have, which equates to power, right? And I think it's so much more than that. And the reality is, as individuals within the industry that are leaders, it's our responsibility to mentor others, because it's important that we keep that ball rolling. So I think it's just based on what your description of a Titan is in your mind. And I think you're right. It has to be a mind shift.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that starts with us, right? Being able to go through the people that others, I guess, look to be able to guide, to be able to go through. If we're trying to be able to keep pushing this wrong way of thinking, then, how are we going to be able to change? How are we going to be able to shift? How are we going to make it better for the next generations, for my kids, for everyone's kids, to be able to go in and feel more confident about what they do and why, rather than what I was trained to be able to go through and do. Don't show your cracks, keep everything back, only be able to show the best things and make as much money as possible, which in essence is not healthy.
Let me ask you, what nationality are you? I know this is I probably shouldn't ask, but you've mentioned some things that are very parallel to the way I was raised. Yeah. And I was never allowed to show emotion. If I cry, I couldn't get angry, couldn't cry. It showed weakness. Yeah. And any kind of emotion would be a signal of weakness, and I wasn't allowed to be weak.
I know it's the last name Lee. It might throw everyone off because I got, are you related to Bruce Lee? I'm like, yeah. Don't I look like him? But
obviously, plain as day, I can see the similarities.
It's being able to go through there. But honestly, Carol, if is Texan a nationality?
Okay, so it's just no. Southern? I'm just saying.
The way they talk about it is.
Is a whole nother nationality.
Don't mess with Texas. Everything's bigger in Texas. Texas ain't even the big state. I mean, I don't know what they're talking about down there.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just usually the people that I talk to that have that kind of background, that talk like that, have like an Asian background. Yeah. And so when I hear that kind of stuff, I'm always curious. Oh, is somebody in your family, of a different descent? Because
I think it was just my dad. Yeah, I mean, my dad kind of going through and never really showed him. It was like, being able to go through, at 15, he was an EVP of a company, had lost his job and, basically had to go back in. He didn't cry, didn't sit back. One of the good things that he did was show me that don't let anything stop you, right? Being able to go through, he didn't sit back and go, oh, woe is me. Let me complain about what just happened. He went in, he started selling siding at Sears. He then worked at Circuit City, right? Remember that place, doing that, sold some 18-wheelers and then got a job at this credit card company that he then worked his way up to EVP again, So like, it was that piece was like, don't ever let them see you sweat, right? To be able to go in. And I mean, it's the ability to say, hey, don't let anything stop you. But I think that also associated some of those things in an emotional aspect as well, too. And I'll be honest, I look at my son too. I was an emotional kid growing up, and I learned, and I continue to be able to work on being able to make sure that I release those and be able to be more open and honest, not only with the world, but with myself at the same time.
I think that's really important part of our story, and really understanding and discovering who we are as people. I have been going through kind of an existential crisis of my own. I retired from the military a few months ago, and we worked really hard to ensure that we were as debt-free as possible when the time come where I knew I wasn't being guaranteed that first and 15th paycheck. So we're well set up. And I've been going through the exploration of like, well, who the heck am I now? Like, I don't have the military. I don't have to go into work. I don't have to go do those things. I realize I'm in a super amazing place in my life, being 40 and quote unquote retired, not needing a job. It was so bizarre to go through that exploration and, the exploration, discover who is it that I actually am. I know we talked about some antiquated things like Circuit City. You've got MySpace written here on your bio for whatever reason. I'm pretty sure I would have had you in my top 8 if MySpace was still a thing. But I want to know from you, like, what is a dopamine dealer? I know what dopamine is. That hit that you get every time you get a like or an update. But what do you mean by dopamine dealer?
Well, it's around that. And, it wasn't, I'm going to be honest, it wasn't a self-glorified title I gave to myself. I was on another podcast, friends of mine, they've got a podcast called The Hustle and Flow Chart. And after just talking about what we did, right? And it's a shift. Like before I go into that, like, talk about MySpace, right? Like, so the reason how I got to where I am right now is because I was blessed and cursed, right? Like when I first started in the online world, one of my first clients was MySpace. And it's funny whenever I say that, my wife's like, dude, that ages you. Like people realize how old you really are. I'm like, awesome, yay. But, it was cool. Like I Travis, back then, dude, it was all about being able to monetize as much traffic as possible. Being able to go in, we helped them create one of the first social media ads to monetize that traffic. And that's what it was a whole bunch of traffic. Being able to go through working with companies like Google and Yahoo and MySpace and all these other things, I got really good at being able to monetize traffic. But did I actually help anyone? Did I actually sell anything? At that point in time was a lot of traffic. And honestly, that what's led me to that whole piece of running multiple companies, people outside looking in going, dude, look at Josh, he's amazing. And I was miserable, right? I was at a point being able to go through. And I mean, I still remember like one of those big points of my life, which was after I had my kids and I wanted to start trying to be able to make a better change and be able to go through, but I was still caught up in the moment of where I was at. And I mean, I remember at my home office, right? Like those doors being shut and being able to hide in my office where it only became a sanctuary, but like a coffin that I would stare at the wall all day, contemplating if I should be in this world. And I was really lucky that I had a good friend of mine that gave me permission to not only take back my life, but give back back to life to my former and my kids and everything like that, and be able to move forward, to be able to shift. And as I was going through all of that, I realized what I want to do. That when I first wrote my book, Travis, dude, if you had met me, 8 years ago, as I was going through my reset in my life, when my wife now met me, I had the man bun, dude. I had mala beads. I mean, the pendulum swings.
Oh my God, you were that douche?
I was that dude.
Oh my God.
It
was
great
funny
because
too.
he's
My
got
wife's
this,
like, I was
Josh has
peacocking,
got this
right?
great media kit. It's got all these photos available. I'm going to have to go search my old MySpace account and see if I can find that photo of the man bun and the beads. So
and the beads.
I don't even know if you'll have to go that
Hey,
far.
wait, whoa. Did you go even further and button your shirt down to your belly button? I'm sorry, unbutton.
How are we going to be able to show, how are we going to peacock well to be able to show the abs and everything like that? I mean,
oh my God. Okay, here we go. We're digging.
I mean,
We're digging
let's be honest, Carol. At that point in time, after I'd went through my divorce, going through the whole thing, I mean, like people were like, oh, do you ever take your hair down? And my wife's probably going to kill me for saying this. And I would use my line was, I only take it down when I'm naked.
So what? That's not bad.
It was just one of those things that, a girl ass kind of going through that whole thing. It was just one of those pieces. So that's
Joshua, just FYI, you cannot offend me. I'm around men all day long in the motorcycle world. You can say whatever you want. I don't even blush.
But it was one of those things, right? Like I was so caught up in my own turmoil of what I was going through. And not till I started releasing and looking at the human, how it goes through, like that's where the dopamine dealer kind of came in. Was I was trying to be able to, the pendulum swung to where I was going to be this guy. I was outgoing, I was doing all this stuff. But I was zen, being able to go through. But when I finally settled, I realized that I wasn't a life coach. That's not where I wanted to be. But I needed to understand the human nature, being an only child, being able to understand people, and then take that with my business acumen of what I had learned around traffic, and then pair those things together to be able to go, how do we actually humanize traffic? So, I mean, that whole dopamine dealer of LinkedIn, Travis, came back after a long freaking story, came back into really, how do we actually engage online, right? How do you actually give small hits of dopamine to put someone in a flow state? Because most people go, oh, dopamine, that gets me all super stoked and high. Well, it actually calms and allows someone to be able to be in a more flow state, to be able to hear, to have a real conversation. And that's what we started doing. And so we leveraging on a platform like LinkedIn. We just started doing the things that my mom taught me how to be able to treat other human beings. We just started doing it online. And so that was a full shift from traffic to that Titan bullshit that I was talking about before, to, oh my God, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? To finally being able to find my true purpose and what I was doing, to be able to take it all together and learn from all those different aspects of my life.
I love that you weave that story together, and especially love that you said
that did it flow?
There was a flow.
That Titan bullshit. Right now, we're staring at like top 5 largest Mega Millions jackpots out there. And I know there's people out there buying their lottery tickets and all this and that. But winning that jackpot, getting to the top of what industry, doesn't mean anything if you don't know who you are and what you're about. When you have all that money in the bank, the reason that so many people go broke is they are playing the lottery because it was never part of their financial strategy anyway. They didn't have one. Their strategy was hopefully that they have finances, not that hope's not a plan. But when you get, like you mentioned, that Titan bullshit, so many people fight and strive and claw their way up, and some people get into the backstabbing and all this craziness, just try to get that title or that thing or that whatever, and they get there and they walk through that door and realize that the room is empty and it has no meaning, and they have no idea what they're going to do now that they're in there. They've achieved the whatever, but it meant nothing. And if they did terrible things to get there, it just makes it that much worse. But when you actually operate as who you are as a real person and the things that you're really all about, it changes the game completely.
And that's a true Titan. That's a true Titan that's actually creating an affecting change compared to just expecting it to be able to change for them.
Unfortunately, we live in a world of entitlement right now. And I have kids that are, 24, 26 years old. I see things happen where I'm like, I hear excuses. I don't hear you taking accountability for anything in your life. And until you learn to take accountability for it, you can't change what is necessary to move forward. So keep making those excuses. You're going to be stuck in a rut for a bit. But if you want to keep moving forward, take accountability, apologize to who you need to apologize to, and move forward. These are lessons, and you don't move on without learning lessons along the way.
Truth. I mean, it's so true. It's good to know that, even though my son's turning 13 this week, that there still might be some road ahead of 24, because he's acting similar the same way. So definitely, as we continue, like, dude, do you not know what you get? Like, you are like, appreciate these things.
They don't though, because that's their normal. That's the thing I'm trying to say is, like, my children were lucky. I mean, they grew up so much more fortunate than I ever did. Like, the chances they had, I never did. And I did it because I didn't want my children to suffer in the same way I did. But in a way, I almost feel like I handicapped them a little, right? Because I'm trying to do better for them. And meanwhile, they're not really experiencing some of the hardships in life and getting that tough backbone and all that stuff. And I'm seeing they're going, I'm looking at them sometimes, I'm like, ooh, you're soft. You really are soft. You haven't quite figured out that you need to like get some bruises and scrapes and,
Yeah. I mean, like, I'm glad I'm not alone when we go and look at it. And I'm sure some of the future generations are listening, but I'm sorry, but it seems like we are, each generation we're getting softer and softer and weaker. We're not making a stronger humanity. We're more susceptible to everything these days. And it's like, oh, well, I don't want to do that.
Well,
tough shit. Sometimes you just got to do it.
So we don't know what childhood is, right? Child labor laws got enacted back in like 1916, and they said you couldn't work under a certain age. Well, before that, as soon as you could physically do something, you were helping out at the farm or the shop or whatever you had, because there wasn't automation. The machinery was really expensive, all that stuff, and you had to work. And if you're on a farm or if your parents are in a restaurant in today's world, you better believe you're doing things from day one. But the vast majority of people, we've all moved into the city. We have the suburban life. We don't have to do a lot of things. Usually both parents work, or if you've got one parent, they're working 2 jobs or 3 jobs. And I know that I did, but they didn't have to put in the work. It's a lot easier, especially in the digital age and the things that we're all doing right now. We're podcasting from 3 different states right now. We make our money online doing stuff. Carol's the only person that shows up in person to do race events. I mean, like, it's so much more easy to make money remotely than at any time in history. So the lessons have to be different. I remember my wife taking our young son, he's now 14. If we're throwing kids' ages around, right? He's now 14. When he was a kid, she'd take him to the store and she'd buy him like a Hot Wheels car or whatever and come home. And I was like, babe, like, we get a lot of cars. Like, we have this giant box of cars. Like, what's the deal? Well, every time I take Cole out, like, I'm getting him like these cars when he's good. And I'm like, it's like, we can't do that. And she's like, why not? I didn't have stuff. She's like, you didn't have stuff going on. I was like, life is not about stuff. What you're doing is training him that every time he leaves the house, he gets paid to behave, and then he has to come home with something. Like, that's the behavior that we're ingraining. It's not, I don't care that he gets toys. We can afford toys, get him toys, but the reason behind it matters.
It does.
It matters so much. And if that's how we're training him, it's not going to equate to something good. So many people I know in our generation, we didn't have. And now that we have the ability to have, we think that's the answer. Having is not the answer. Earning is the answer.
Truth. Yeah. I mean,
Agreed.
It's so important to be able to remember, Travis. I mean, I think and I think I know the three of us, I mean, we work to instill that into our kids all the time, but no matter how much unless we show them, not tell them, and that's the difference, right? But we've worked hard for what we've worked hard, put the time, energy, and effort into it to be able to have the things. I mean, I had this conversation all the time with my son, like, why do you get to go buy these Nikes? I don't. I'm like, I worked for it. I made the money. Right? Dad gets to buy whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah.
Why don't I get this? Because you need me to pay for it. So
yeah, you have to earn the money, dude.
And it's like, okay, it's not clicking. Something we're missing.
Well, I'll tell you what, sweetheart. You know what? You can get up at 6 a.m. every morning and go deliver papers and see how many hours it takes for you to own that pair of Nikes.
Oh, yeah.
And then decide if it's worth it. And there would be definitely a bigger appreciation for how much things cost, because they don't understand how much things cost. They figure, oh, I like that. They don't even look at the price because dad's paying for it or mom's paying for it, right? So it doesn't matter. But the minute they have to put money to it themselves, their hours, their hard labor into it, that's when things change.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when they have to look at what they're doing and how it impacts the world around them. I remember when my daughter was in junior high, she comes home one day, she's like, Dad, I want to get a snake. And I was like, snake? What are you doing with a snake? Well, okay. How much is a snake? She's like, Dad, it's only $500. I was like, $500? Like, what are you talking about? It's only $500. It's $500 of my dollars. She's like, Dad, I know you're good for it. And I was like, look.
Oh my God.
You're not doing your job. I'm not getting a snake. She's like, Dad, I'm a kid. I don't have a job. I was like, you go to school. School is your job. She's like, Dad, if school was my job, I'd be getting paid. I was like, okay, we're starting a conversation here. I was like, you want to get paid for grades? She's like, yeah. I was like, I'll pay you for A's. She's like, each A? I was like, no, all A's, and I give you $500 or you get zero.
Right.
And she's like, what? I was like, I set the gauntlet, right? Set the challenge. Yep. She goes out, son of a gun, comes back, straight A's. She's like, Dad, let's go get the snake. I was like, no, the challenge was for the dollars, not for the reward. The dollars you have, we put a little thing out in front of her door. We wrote bank account, right? Wrote $500 on it. She's like, Dad, let's go get the snake. It's like, no, now I'm going to teach you how to spend money. So let's look at our network. It's like the first place you went was PetSmart. They got the snake and the thing and the terrarium and all the heating rocks and all that stuff. Like, that's $500, but that's not the only option. So it's just like, well, what do we do? It's like, I'm going to ask my friends on Facebook, because MySpace was already defunct by that time.
Oh,
I was on MySpace. So I'm not pretending that I wasn't, but at this time,
you're talking about like, that was my client 20 years ago. Guys.
That was my client. So we put it out there. It's like, hey, who do we know that's got a snake? And my buddy goes, oh, hey, I know somebody. We went to this dude's place. He had, I don't know if it was legal or not, his whole garage was full of all sorts of different animals that he was breeding.
I'd assume illegal.
Oh my God, that seems awfully seedy. Yeah.
It seems shady. I don't know who the guy was. If the feds are listening to this, I don't have any information for you. We go there, we find a ball python. She really wanted a ball python. We got a tank and the heating rock and a thing of bedding, all of it together. How much do we think it was?
A couple $100.
Carol says a couple hundred. Josh, you say
50.
$60.
Get the flock out.
I didn't go over.
Yes, $60 to get all this stuff done. And she got it, and she was so happy. And we minus the $60 on her chart thing there. She had
$440.
$440 left. I was like, see,
I know, isn't it funny? I'm Chinese and can do math. There's nothing wrong with that statement right there. Sorry.
I feel like there's a joke in there. I don't know what it is, but I feel like there's a joke in there. So we got the opportunity to have her put out some effort to pay attention to her grades a little bit. It didn't last, but she did it for that time. She got paid like what was agreed upon. And then we had a secondary lesson, like, how are we going to move forward and do this? Because, yeah, you can go do it. You can go spend the $500, but then you're at the $500 and you got a snake that just sits in his cage, like staring at you. And you wonder when you go to feed him if it's going to eat the rat or if it's going to eat your hand. Like, you're not really sure what's going to happen.
There. Yeah.
Carol might just crack you open and eat you right there. I don't know what's going to happen.
Oh, I'm a vegetarian, so that wouldn't happen. Sorry.
But so many times as parents, as busy as we are as a culture, and I hate that word, we abdicate. We pass off responsibility of raising our kids to the school. We will vote and campaign for a politician and get them elected, but then we abdicate our continued responsibility and say, you go out and fix it. And if they don't, we say, well, why didn't you do anything? And they didn't support them the whole time, but they abdicate and say, it's your responsibility. Oh, you didn't do it? We'll just get somebody else. No, they're not taking the ownership of what it is that's going on in the world, what they're deciding or what they're doing, but it's not all sunshine and rainbows. Josh, what happened as you got into this pit and you went through this transformation? You say transformation, right? That's like a code word for however many months or years that took. Like, what does that look like? What does it feel like to be in that pit?
You know, Travis, it was an interesting spot to be in. One, you know, even before it happened, right? Being able to realize, to be able to be in that office, right? I still have, you know, thoughts of when that would be, when I would stare at a wall. I'm running multiple companies. I can always, you know, make everyone perceive whatever I need them to feel. I'm acting, right? Being able to go through, and we learn this as entrepreneurs, or we did learn this as entrepreneurs, to be able to look at the Facebook life, right? Like, oh my God, look at that person's always happy. They're always just, look at all the crazy stuff they're doing. They're no issues, right? And you're like, then behind the scenes, you're like, life sucks. You know, they're upset. They're pissed off all the time, right? And this is why, you know, going back to kids, they have this, there's more mental issues than ever before. And I think that was a lot what I was going through, right? I didn't give myself permission, and I needed someone else to be able to do that, to be able to give me that permission. Thank God it happened. And it wasn't easy, right? My lawyers, you know, Travis, one of the first things was like, well, you're running 10 companies. Your former thinks that you're hiding money around the globe. This could take 3 years, you know? And I said, man, all right, well, I'm a new person. I'm a new me. I don't need money to be able to kind of go in. And I said, I value my time over money. So I can always make more money. I can't make more time. And so I closed everything down, liquid everything, and walked away at 36 with a little bit under $1,000 in my name, in about 6 months, to be the fastest I could be able to go through that, to be able to move forward. So my kids didn't go through it, and move back in with my parents. I hadn't worried about money for years. And, you know, and then had to be able to go through that. And at first I was out, right? I was out with my buddies. I was, you know, telling Carol with the man bun, you know, running around, you know, and I was like, oh man, I'm out. But then when I wasn't out, hanging out, doing all this other stuff, I was at home, and I was just kind of laying there, and I'd work what I needed to work to be able to pay the bills. And then honestly, it's really hard for me to say I wasn't as present a father as I should have been during the time frame, because I wasn't acknowledging the fact, you're gonna cry. I was acknowledging the fact that I was in a depression from it. I hadn't lived a world and a life for a while that I didn't have to worry about money, where I had to go through those, where I was out, and I put myself in that position. And so, because my perception of everyone else's perception was driving me crazy, I had no clue. And this is what drives most people crazy. I have no clue what their perception is, but most of us have to try to perceive that. And so I was like, oh, well, they all hold me. I'm Joshua Lee. ran 10 different companies, 6, 7, 8 figures. I did this. I was the person that everyone came for when they had issues, but that wasn't me anymore. And then until Travis, I released that, and I went to a couple of buddies of mine, and I sent him a text. I said, hey, I'm having issues. I'm going through this. And I just laid it out, and the responses were, we know, we've been waiting for you. We got you. Next day, dude, my life started getting better. I released that weight that I was holding on my chest, and it was shifting. And it didn't happen overnight. There was time, energy, and not until I met my wife now, who at the time was a girlfriend, and went through some other stuff, but it was a shift. And that's what was really going on. That reset in my life, what I was trying to find by doing, deep diving into my soul, understanding all the other stuff, doing ayahuasca and all these other things, was truly just understanding from my people that I held as friends to take, and then once I released it off me, I could love myself again.
Yeah, not a lot of people though will admit that you have to get yourself to the point where you do a complete breakdown of yourself to rebuild yourself stronger. And because what ends up happening is, I think we have these misconceptions of ourselves, and we build around those misconceptions, but that foundation is very rocky. I mean, there is no solidity in there. Like it's not solid. So what's going to happen is eventually it's going to fall apart, but it's okay to fall apart, because once you fall apart, you can really reassemble yourself into this incredible individual, because you now have history and lessons and a past that this is what happened. Let's not go down that road again, because that sucked, right? And honestly, I think once you break yourself down and you rebuild yourself, you're stronger, wiser, and better than you've ever been.
100%. And as long as you acknowledge it and you don't try and go, oh, that was the thing, and then you kind of move on, right? I mean, like you don't forget your past. You just don't let it control you. And I think that's the big
or define you. Define you. People use that word all the time. It makes me laugh. Don't let it define you. It's like, yeah. Well, we're going to get over that word eventually. I hope so.
We're here because of what we had in our past, right? I mean, that did make people go, would you change anything? Yeah, there was a lot of hardship, but like, I wouldn't be where I am today. I wouldn't be helping the people. I wouldn't have the love of my life as my business partner. I wouldn't have amazing kids. Like all these things I would not have that I truly love in my life. So no, I'd go through all the shit again. And honestly, probably some of my stuff was first world bullshit, right? Because like people go like, that was hard for you. Let me tell you what I went through, right?
Let me tell you what hard is, buddy. You don't even know.
Yeah. That's funny.
What kills me is there's examples of this stuff all over, but there's some gap there where we have a heck of a time applying it to us. I went to boot camp. That's what they do. They break everyone down to a basic level, and they build you back up into a team. This happens in sports all over the place. It even happens every time I have tacos. Look, tacos fall apart, and I don't love them any less. I just put another tortilla down, and then as it falls apart, boom, another taco. And I know that this is a joke, right?
I love it.
But it's really that true. Like, we don't have a problem going through this stuff in the military or sports teams or any other facet like this. We don't hate tacos for falling apart, but for somehow when we feel that we do it, we feel that it's not okay. Then the reason that this show is here and the reason that we ask you about those things that are hard to talk about is because of what we see on social media. We just see the nice poses and the big smiles and, oh, look, I'm on my yacht today,
and the happiness,
all this stuff, and you find the right lighting to make your muscles pop in the gym and all this stuff. And here's the deal: life is a fucking disaster. A lot of the time, it's hard. It's lonely. If you're poor, you got poor people problems. If you're middle class, you got middle class problems. If you're rich, you got rich people problems. You got to you accumulated all this stuff. Now you got to try to keep it somehow, right? You like, at every level, at every stage, no matter what you're doing, it's hard. You're on the hamster wheel where you go earn money all week and then you try to blow it all on the weekend with something that you drink, snort, smoke, gamble, like whatever your man bun, apparently, whatever you're putting that money into, everyone goes through that. It's some variety. It looks some are a little bit more socially acceptable than others, right? Oh, I have a real problem. I have to go to the gym every day, right? That's a real problem for some people. That creates real relationship problems. It creates, it doesn't look bad, right? It looks great going to the gym every day.
It's still an addictive behavior.
Still an addictive behavior. It can still cause problems. And that's really the main driver of the show, is to talk about that stuff. But you were able to get through that, Josh. You were able to get through the valley of the shadow of man buns and make it through to the other side.
Man buns and beads.
Man buns, buns and bees, beads and buns.
Oh, I can only imagine what the title of the
that's going to be the quote.
From man bun and beans to beads to.
Yeah. Oh God.
So what would you tell someone listening to this right now that can maybe use some encouragement, that maybe like idolizes you as the dopamine dealer, or God forbid, I don't know how they would still remember from your time in Facebook, and they have you on this pedestal up here? Like, what would you tell them to say that you're a real person? How would you encourage them to live their authentic life, to be their Titan?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, Travis. You know, I do this as often as possible to try and, you know, think about what I would want someone to have said to me. First off, you're not alone, right? I think that's the biggest thing that most of us, as we go through this life, is that social media does this, and we do it to ourselves, is we really, you know, put ourselves in these silos that it's all on us and no one else is experiencing the things that we're experiencing. And there are other people like you. There are other people going through the same shit. There's other people going through the same struggles. And if you just allow them to be able to understand, no one can help you until you allow them in. If you don't tell someone, how do they know to be able to help you? Right. And in this world that we live in, most people are too scared to be able to say anything to someone and go and try and pull them out without them asking for, you know, to wave their hands. Hey, I'm drowning. You know, and that shouldn't always be the case. Before you're drowning, allow people to understand that you're treading water. Right. And because there's so many amazing human beings in this world, especially people listening now, that are like, hey, I got you. One of the biggest shifts in my life was when my wife now told me that when I was going through that whole reset, Travis, like I remember I was trying to build back up, right? Build my companies, go through. And she was, before we got married, she was living in Seattle, and sorry, it's hard. It takes me a second because this just kind of gets into me. She was living in Seattle and she was going to move here to Austin, and she was walking away from a career at Microsoft. She had been asked to be the executive comms for one of the EVPs, which is like the super ladder up to the, you know, corporate level and at Microsoft. And she turned it down and chose me. And right before then, I had a tough month where I was struggling to pay the rent at my house. And I told her, I said, I don't know if you should move here, because I let my ego get in the way. And she's like, what's going on? Like, I made this choice. What's happening? And that ego stepped in. I was like, I can't let her know. I don't want to put her in a bad situation. She's going to move here and realize I can't pay for shit. And, you know, like really see behind the facade of what I'm trying to, you know, to do. And I just opened up and I told her, and she goes, I got you. And truly, I had never really felt that way before, because, and she goes, if I was struggling, and as you as a man in our society, and I said, hey, I need help, you as a man would go, okay, I got you. Why can't a woman do that for a man? And I don't really truly understand if I actually truly knew what love was until that moment. It was truly defined for me, and I felt it, and I felt the love that I'd given out to others, but never really felt.
Got it in return.
And it was a shift. So, I mean, that's that whole piece, right? That's what I want people to understand. You make yourself alone unless you tell someone. I could have changed the entire trajectory of my life from that moment. If I had let my ego take over and said, don't move here, there's something else going on. But I was honest, I was raw, I was real. And it's been the best decision and best opportunity in my life to be with my soulmate.
Wow, that was pretty powerful. I mean, sometimes these things happen for a reason, right? And I love the fact that you accepted she would allow, you would allow her to step in and help you and hold you up, because that's what relationships are about, is you hold each other up. And it's not about money. It's not about any of those things. And we do actually, our ego causes the biggest problem.
Yeah.
So look at what you got from just taking a chance, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look, I wouldn't be on this podcast here with y'all today, more than likely, in the same capacity without that moment, without that opportunity that I created of vulnerability, right? And coming in, because prior to where a lot of my problems came in were the things that I was taught, atlas rolling the boulder up the hill, right? It's all on your shoulders, being able to go through, right? Being able to do this whole aspect. And
are you saying more like from a man's aspect, like the weight is on your shoulders, right?
Right.
Yeah,
that caused a lot of those problems. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's unfair to say that the weight belongs on men's shoulders, right? And I wish, and maybe women are at fault too, because there's a lot of women, and please do not come after me for saying this. Please, 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 please.
Women. You want Carol's home phone number? I'm going to have it in the show notes.
Here's in the show notes. God, I'm going to get a lot of pissed off women. But anyway, I am a very firm believer in making it for yourself and not leaning on a man to support you. And I think we lose ourselves when we lean on men to support us, because we gave our power, in a sense, away to a man, and our identity, our worth, everything relies on what he's willing and able to provide. And if you are married to a shitty man, then what ends up happening? You fucking hate your life, and you now have zero skills to go to work, right? So I think it would I behoove women that really, if you want to feel incredible self-worth, go do it on your own. And, then when you get into a relationship, you actually feel empowered. You don't have to be in that relationship because you need to be financially stable or be taken care of, right? You can go into that relationship because you love that individual.
Well,
yeah.
So please do not hate me.
My wife would be cheering you on right now.
What's your wife's name, Josh?
Rachel.
Rachel
would be like, fuck yeah, Carol, 100%.
So I
don't need no man. I don't need this guy.
Well, listen, I hate talking out like that, because the majority of the women that I say it in front of get offended. And when they find out that I have my own home, when I did all these things on my own, they feel very insecure about themselves or whatever, but I get the evil eye. I'm not their friends.
Well, your choices are not their choices. In marriage,
correct.
if it's 50-50, it's never going to work if both parties are half-assing it. It has to be full 100% all the way. You made a great point about being able to make it yourself and not rely and have that as a crutch or a reason to stay together in a shitty situation. Josh brought up the fact that Rachel really came down and swooped in and helped save him and helped really encourage and support. My wife, she, from the very beginning, she understood what she wanted for her life. She really desired the traditional role where I did the stuff, she stayed with the kids. She really desired that. And she helped support me along the way. Never talked about me behind my back and said, oh, my husband's doing this. She never did that. She never talked back. The gals got together and some complained about their husband. She never did that. And when I was like, hey, these options are coming up for my career, she always said, whatever's best for your career, that's what we're going to do, because she understood to support me in that aspect. We've got 3 fantastic stories and examples of different ways to create a solid household. And I think that's really awesome that there's not just one way to do it.
Travis and Carol, I love this conversation, because so many podcasts I get on, it's always like, well, tell me, how are we leveraging LinkedIn and how you build your business and how to be able to go through.
Oh, fuck. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in the person. You.
Right. I always say I will bet on a person 100% of the time, and ideas come and go, but the right person can stand the test of time. And I will always bet on a human. And that's the entire piece of why we're all here, right? We need to remember that on and offline, everyone's human. We just forget to be that way.
I think the world runs so quickly these days, and it's like at this lightning speed, and everybody is like getting these tiny little tidbits, and it's like, who do I need to know, and what do they do, and how can they benefit me? And the truth is, you just miss the whole picture, right? You miss the fact that we're humans. We're meant to be here to connect with other humans, period. And connection doesn't mean like, hey Josh, how's it going? Cool. Yeah, so you want to get together, like really quickly? No, it's about building actual connections where you spend time together, not just that you have coffee together, you spend time together, your family spend time together, and you have real conversations, not superficial bullshit conversations.
Oh, hey, can I buy you a burger, take a lunch, pick your brain?
Oh, that's so
cringe. So gross. So gross.
Those are always fun. No, it is funny because in that business world, like people, and like when they do that, they're not really showing up, because if you're looking for that free information, what's the value of it? There is no value in it, and they don't usually take action in not trying to shift on the business side, but like one of the things I did was, so you want to buy me a cup of coffee? Awesome. Charge $1,000. Charge $1,000 for a cup of coffee. Because, like, truthfully, if I want someone to be able to show up, look, I'll dig a fucking ditch for $1,000 an hour, right? Yeah. So, like, I'm showing up, I'm excited, and if they're paying $1,000 to sit down with me, they're showing up too. And how are diamonds formed, right? Two opposing forces coming together with this equal energy to create something amazing. And at the end of the time, I was like, look, if I didn't give you value, we didn't add value to each other, like, dude, I'll give you your money back, but like fucking show up, because I'm sick of, like you said, going like, hey, let's go pick your brain, or hey, you want to go grab a cup of coffee? Not really. I mean, unless we're going to have some fun, or like we're going to talk some real shit here. If you're just looking to get some free advice that you're not going to take action on, guess what? There's an amazing site. It's called Google. It's free for everybody. If you're just a browser of information, you're a collector, go there.
Yeah.
I promise you more information out of that website than you will from me.
And please don't fucking waste my time, because my time is valuable. And by the way, that is the only commodity that you can never get more of. So when you waste a half an hour to an hour of my time, who knows? I might want to spend that time with my girlfriend on the phone, helping her through a tough situation. But instead, now you wasted that hour I could have spent with her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right?
I want to talk and work with action takers, people that take action on the information they get, right?
Yeah.
So,
but that's the problem with information where you get it over coffee, right? They treat it like it's cheap. It's discounted because he paid you what? At best, if you get a cappuccino or a latte, maybe $6, right? So, okay. So your advice is worth that $6. Do you think he's going to take it? Fuck no. Why? Because it was $6.
Yeah. Well, we're trained that way, right? I mean, like, Travis, tell me, like, and if you don't watch TV, fine. Just like, dude, Josh, I don't watch TV, but like, how many, have you ever had a night with your wife and it's like, oh, let's watch Netflix, and you're like, fuck, there's nothing on.
Yeah.
That ever happened? Either one of y'all?
Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Bullshit. There's too much, right? We have information overload. Content isn't killing.
Oh, okay. No, Josh. So my idea is I say nothing's on so we can get busy other places. That's all. That's what I'm working on.
My thing is I'm perfectly good at wasting my own time. I don't need anyone else's help wasting my time. I drove, I'm in Oklahoma City. I drove to Dallas for lunch. It's 3 hours. I drove for a lunch to go meet people that are abundant, that want to have real conversations, that I want to build things with, and we give each other value. I'll do that over having a lunch across the street for a coffee or a lunch. Like, so someone in town in Oklahoma City, they have a nonprofit. They created a studio. I was like, that's so cool. I would love to come and talk and share in some of the stuff that I do. And I know she was so excited to talk to me, but she said, I can't wait to pick your brain 3 times during the conversation. And I told her, I was like, hey, I'm happy to come down there and do this, but know that when you say that phrase to someone that does what we do, consulting and whatever else, like, that's a really offensive phrase. I know you're not saying it on purpose. I know I'm not trying to shift the conversation, but like, say, I can't wait to learn from a legend. I'm so excited to meet you. I'm so excited to build a relationship. When you use the phrase pick your brain, it sounds like I'm just some cheap disposable container holding information. You just want to scoop it out and eat it and then be on to the next thing in your life. I don't know if it's just me that feels that way when I hear the term pick your brain. I just cringe. I just cringe. It just sounds like I would rather be getting paid for sex than the way that I'm treated with, my knowledge and information. You know what I mean?
There's nothing wrong with that.
I would feel less used. At least I would get something out of it. You know what I mean?
Of course, Travis had to go there.
But that's my coping mechanism, is to crack jokes around something that's serious.
Well, Travis, too,
at least 5 times during this episode.
When you're driving to Dallas, I mean, Austin's only 3 more hours. I mean, like, don't be cheap, drive the extra 3 hours, come see me.
Well, tell you what, we'll do a fair exchange. I'll drive 3 to Dallas and you can drive 3 to Dallas.
And then we're there.
I like Carol flying.
Oh, there you go.
Perfect.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
And you can meanwhile hunt for his man bun and beads and say, hey, I'd like to take a picture with this. Haha.
It's okay. I went with another hair.
That's okay. We've all gone through those periods of time where we're going, oh my God, what was I thinking?
It happens. And I mean, it happens with age. I mean, as we go through, we can look back all those different times, right, Carolyn, and go, oh, what? Yeah. Look back and go through. But I think they all defined us at some point that allowed us to be able to be where we are today, that were learning experiences and hell, I mean, like, this experiences, right, that we went through life. And I mean, that's what life is about. It's an experience. It's not to be able to sit on the sideline and go, wow, look what Travis is doing. Oh, that's amazing. Look what Carol's doing. That's amazing. Fuck that. Like, go try to be able to achieve that.
Go do it.
Thing.
Go do it.
Do your own. It's a venture. Life is an adventure. Go have your own adventure. Don't try to emulate somebody else's adventure, because their journey is way fucking different than your journey. Exactly. So if you're going to try to go down that journey, I'm going to bet you're going to get bitch slapped back into your place. So might as well go down yours and save, the universe the trouble of bitch slapping you back into your own journey.
It's a bitch slap universe here with Carol Carpenter.
It's your new podcast.
Welcome to my TED Talk.
Oh, great. Thanks. I'm providing material for your TED Talk now. I appreciate it.
Oh, yeah. No, I soak up everything. But you guys just said, think back and say, what was I thinking? The problem with my memory is I remember exactly what I was thinking when I look at that thing. I was like, you poor son of a bitch. How, like, that's the logic. Because I can remember it. I can remember walking through that stuff and I'm like, yep, I can't believe it. So I played poker last night at a home game, and I sat next to a guy and I was looking at him. I was like, I know this dude. And he said something else, and he said something about, I've been looking at climate change, and I remember talking to someone about Darfur and all the stuff that was going on. So I was like, dude, I played poker with you at Newcastle Casino 16 years ago. You had a Darfur bracelet on. And he was like, I did. He's like, how do you remember that? I was like, I can remember that, but I can't remember what my poker hand was 10 seconds ago, but I can remember that interaction from 16 years ago. Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. And people are like, you remember that? Oh yeah. I did the Miss Crossroads, Oklahoma. Last year I was the MC for the event, the inaugural event. And this year I was a judge. I went out and I was talking to the crowd in between. I was talking to a couple of the gals that had crowns on from other competitions this year. She's like, I remember you. He was like, I remember you too. You did this for your talent, and you got asked this on stage. And she's like, how do you know that? I was like, I don't know, but I do remember that stuff. I was like, congratulations this year. I know you didn't win at Crossroads last year. Are you looking forward to mentoring something? She's like, yeah, I got so much better over the last year. I did this, this, and this. And
That's
like
awesome.
had that real connection with real people. I just love how that stuff
People
is.
want to be remembered, and you remember them. And I think that's,
Yeah.
you know, it's when people meet other people, I don't think they realize, you know, especially you that has like this photographic memory, but most people, once you're done, you forget their name, you forget everything they've said to you, right? So the fact that you actually remember and acknowledge it, it's almost like a validation they exist. It's different.
Yeah.
It changes the conversation. It actually builds a relationship, because most people have conversations and that's it. They don't actually take those conversations and build relationships, because you want to create opportunity that starts with the conversation that creates a relationship that opens up opportunities for the rest of your life.
Right. You can't go from each point and miss a point.
We're too focused on being polite or waiting for your turn to respond instead of actually acknowledging what's happening. You're like, oh, I like them. They were nice. When you said that, you just completely cast them out of your memory because they were nice. Nice essentially means not memorable, not valuable in any way, shape, or form. It is a completely negative word when people say it. Oh, I like them. They were nice. Really? What was their name? I have no idea. You immediately forget them. I spent a couple of years, I call myself a social scientist, kind of just saying whatever I wanted to say. It was my goal at one point to be remembered for anything, good or bad. I wanted to create a file on you that you could remember me. And because I was a younger man, a lot of those were negative files. It was just me being a jackass. Now I really try to make positive folders on people. And so when my name pops up on their phone, they're like, oh yeah, Travis, can't wait to take his call. But last night, the environment we were at the poker table at this home game, you know, a lot of joking, a lot of comments flying around, really, really enjoyable. I got out early because I made some terrible decisions. But I was walking away from the table and they're like, oh, it was nice to meet you. I was like, it was really nice playing with most of you. And the whole table erupted and they laughed and they just loved it. One guy's like, I wonder who he means. I was like, well, obviously, if you're that insecure, I obviously meant you. But the rest of you, it was a pleasure. But now they're gonna, like, the next time I see him, they're gonna be like, ah, that's the guy. They're gonna know who I am immediately because of the interaction that we had. Oh, I like them. They were nice. Forget immediately. Have real conversations. Knock people off of their hamster wheel that they've been on for the last 6 years, not putting actual thought, action, and intention into their daily life. Brush with your non-dominant hand so you can be in the moment and be present. Please, dear God, don't just do the things that you've always done because you've always done them.
It's habitual. People are habitual. But I kind of want to shift gears and talk. Because we're shifting gears. I use my foot though. I use my foot.
Yeah, you left hand pulling the clutch, left toe to shift, right? Because you're a motorcycle girl.
Carol's like, what are you doing? Like,
what are you doing?
Manual shifter here.
I don't understand. Anyways, so I wanted to talk a little bit about your book, and so tell us about your book.
You know, the book was really, people go, why do you write your book? And I was like, you know, some people write it to be able to say, oh, I have a book, right? Or other people, you know, to be able to have that famous, whatever it is. I mean, honestly, Carol, my book was written for me to be able to say all the things that I never said before, that I went through, that I want others to be able to understand, because, you know, I live this whole world that we were all taught, like, you know, work-life balance. Well, there's no growth in balance, right? Work-life balance is bullshit, right? It's about being able to integrate the different aspects that make you powerful. So, I mean, like, I start off the book with telling a story of me in Vegas making a bet at the Palms Casino, the Playboy Club to be exact. And I was up there with a buddy of mine, right? I'm sitting there and I was at the height of one of my career. And, you know, he's like, oh, I just sold my company for 20-something million dollars, whatever it was. He's like, hey, I'll sell you the source code. You want to go? And we're sitting there, we're playing poker. You know, Travis knows what I'm talking about. We're guys, we're measuring who's biggest, you know, as we lay down our bets. And and he's like, man, I'll sell you this for 1.3. And he's like, it's a steal. No due diligence, no nothing. And I said, yes. I was like, sure, yeah, let's do it. I'm a handshake. Because again, Southern guy, well, handshakes kind of going through there, be able to trust someone. That $1.3 million bet cost me $10 million over the next year because I didn't do the due diligence, didn't go through, and I was too much of a man, you know, as we were sitting at the table to be able to go through and go back on something, be able to go. And it's just, that's how I wanted people to understand, like, look, there are split-second decisions sometimes that we make in this life that maybe you should have had a second more to think about it, right? Don't let your ego get in the way.
Well, I think you got caught up in the moment as well. I mean, being caught up in the moment of that whole adrenaline, right, caused you to make that decision.
But I mean, all those different aspects leading up to that, leading up to the book, leading up to the reset in my life, outside looking in, I said I was successful, but everyone bases success off of monetary value, like we mentioned earlier today in the conversation. But truthfully, what I was my relationships were monetary. My health was not there. I had no vision about where I was going. I just knew where I was at, and everything was about work or play, right? I was out playing all the time, working, flying everywhere, like all the other crap, drugs, everything. And I just was unhappy. It was miserable. That is not something to be happy and successful about. So, I mean, that book was about some of the decisions, some of the things, and what I did to be able to make the shifts in my life, to be able to be on the other side of that, to be able to get on that, to be able to actually make relationships important, to be able to make my health important, to be able to make a vision about where I was going. Because all that, if you don't have that base of who you are as a human being, trying to build a company, trying to build a vision, trying to be able to, you know, to make money, that aspect, it's the wrong way to be able to do it. So that's what the book was about. Like, look, here's my life, and hopefully someone can garnish. For me, it was a release. And I hope the book was really, if even one person, I've probably given away more copies than I sold. I did release the book too. I was going through my depression. So don't do that. Pay attention when you're actually doing the release, because you know, you're trying to go through these whole things. But
well, by the way, writing a book is very cathartic. I mean, if you were struggling with anything, it forces you to face a lot of those dark corners and a lot of those boxes that you put away, and you open them. You have to open them to get through it, because you can't get to the next step without opening boxes that you literally wanted to set fire to years ago, right? Yeah. But it is such a healing process in the meantime. And I think there's a reason, you know, when you write that book, that you go through that healing process, because it allows you to transform. It allows you to evolve. It allows you to become the person that you want to be, because now you took the spotlight, shown it into that dark corner, and there's no more dark corners.
Of course.
There's no more guilt. There's no more shame.
Nope.
There's still going to be some doubt, but who would you be?
Yeah, who doesn't have doubt?
Yeah.
Who would you be? What decision would you make if there was not guilt or shame associated with it? What would the real decision be? And when you could start to do that, some people are like, "Ain't no way, Travis. Guilt and shame, they are my game. That's the only way I make decisions." Moms out there, mom guilt's a real thing. What would you do if there wasn't guilt attached to the decision you needed to make?
Yeah, but it causes so much pain in your life that you can't overcome. You have to face it. You know,
it's holding a cactus. You're in pain anyway, and you start to wiggle, and it all hurts.
Just bring it in closer.
But it's not till you make the decision to let go of the cactus that you can actually start healing. The pain's there whether you make a decision or not.
Everyone knows that though, right, Charles? I mean, like, the pain you know is easier than the pain you don't, right? We hear this all the time. People going like, I'd rather, you know, it's easier because I already know that pain, right? But what could the pain be that I've never experienced if I go into that? But I'm going to tell you, being in that, understanding, living in that pain, then releasing it, one of the best things that I did was be 100% me, 100% of the time, on and offline, unapologetically. Love me or hate me. Because I know in this world, as human beings, we all make decisions on some degree of love or hate. We do not make decisions towards people if they are indifferent, if they are not around, they're not doing anything. That's just wasting time. If you are going to be indifferent in this world, you're not only wasting your own time, you're wasting everyone else around you. So realize that and be able to make that shift. And look, if you're polarizing, that means you're probably living more into your true self than you actually, most people are.
Yeah. Not everyone's going to like me. I know for sure not everyone likes Carol.
Oh my goodness.
No, they don't like you. They love you. Come on. Did you think I had something negative?
Oh, he's reading. He's stepping it back now.
No, I know for 100% certainty that I'm the villain in somebody's story. I know there's someone out there with a lipstick list on the wall that they're going to come get me one day because I'm responsible for all their problems.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you called out the truth. You know, I think the people that don't want to hear it and you're their villain, you told them a truth that they don't want to hear.
For me, yeah, probably. Like, you're telling a lot of stories about all these problems that you're having. You know what the common denominator is? You're making terrible decisions. Travis, I cannot. No, you don't understand. You just don't. I can't believe Travis would tell me that stuff. If you're listening to this right now and you're not watching the video, you're robbing yourself of the joy of all of our facial expressions and interactions and like ghost writing names on walls. Like, you've got to watch the video. But
I think most of them are just from you, Travis. You've been shifting and writing. Carol and I are just sitting here, just calm.
We're just, we're being awesome, Travis. Just FYI.
Yeah. It's just me. If you want to see me act crazy on screen, then you've got to watch the video.
Gesticulation.
This has been fun, y'all. I mean, again, I truly a nice laugh just to be with other just good human beings and just be able to like, look, this is the shit. This is what's going on. Like, I don't think the average person gets that on a regular basis. I mean, like, this is what we should be asking everyone to do. Like, look, reach out to us, hang out and just let your freak flag fly, right? Like, you know, whatever it is.
Man, blood, beads, and everything. Just let it all go.
I dropped that way too early in the episode.
You did. And that's, well, see, now you know for future, it's your own damn fault. And I'll never let you get away with it.
I'll have to text you a picture just so you can have it, Travis, afterwards. You'd be like,
I want one. Joshua, yeah, I want one too.
Well, you know, okay, I've got one last story before we wrap it up. I did the judge thing for the Miss Crossroads Oklahoma. Fantastic. The girl that I thought was going to win the whole thing ended up winning the whole thing. Alyssa Payne, congratulations on being Miss Crossroads. She told a story. One of her like fun facts was that she's terrified of zebras. And then we see this thing. We're like, all right, we got to know the story. She was like 3. Her mom took her to the zoo. There was a bunch of zebras there. She took this nice photo, right? A great photo with her by the zebra. And as soon as they put the camera down, the zebra grabbed her, like clamped down on her arm and started dragging her. And thankfully, you know, yeah, shocked faces, right? Thankfully let go a few moments later. And my reply was like, you mean you were that lovable that early that the zebra just had to have you? And she's like, that's a heck of a way to look at it. And then I sent her congratulations on Instagram. She sent me the picture of the zebra picture in an Instagram message. So I got that little, you know, she's like, this is the zebra. So I'm looking forward to adding that picture of you in a man bun next to the terrifying zebra picture.
Well, you also have to tell him about the call name you have for people. And so maybe we make his call name, right?
Oh,
Buns and Beads.
Buns and Beads, yeah. I've got a call sign. I flew for the Navy for a number of years, right? So I've got a call sign, Taco John, or Carol likes to call me Pit Bitch. Carol's story is that she went on a safari and then she got caught peeing under a giraffe. She like kind of backed up in the darkness and they shone a big light. She was under a giraffe. Carol,
I literally peed under a giraffe.
So PUG, so she's Pug.
So he calls me Pug.
Pug.
And now you're scared of giraffes. I get it. I mean,
yeah.
No, I'm not afraid of giraffes at all.
Man, bun and beads. Here we go. Everyone gets a call sign on the show.
Everybody gets a call sign. So we'll just call Josh Bab.
Buns and Beads,
right?
So
Babs. Wasn't there a TV show called Babs or something like that?
Was there?
My badass bitches.
Badass bitches.
I like that.
Yeah, there you go.
See, now
that's Carol's
like,
next
okay, wait a minute.
right
I might want that
bitches.
back now.
You can't have it.
So, hey, Josh, before we let you go, we'll give you a chance to give a final piece of advice where you would like to connect with people at, or like where they can get your book or whatever you want to say. Go ahead. Floor is yours.
Wow. We've said so much throughout this entire episode. I mean, like really sharing from family to life to career to all these different aspects. The biggest thing I want everyone to understand is, don't forget the you and human, right? I think this is the biggest thing that most of us forget about, because we're like, oh, I've got to be human, but you forgot you, right? It starts with that. And that's where everyone needs to understand how to tap into that self first, because you can't pour from an empty cup as you go through. So how are you starting your day? How are you going through your life? How are you actually shifting this? Because so many of us, I mean, I just had a conversation today that I find myself, even to this, knowing the things that I do, I still find myself on occasion, often probably more than not, pouring from an empty cup. And I have to be able to have that self-love for myself first to be able to give it to others. So that's the one thing I want everyone to really remember, right? Starts with you. And to be able to connect with me, I mean, dude, Travis, I would say for me, surprise, surprise, I live and breathe on LinkedIn, being able to go in there. I love when someone connects with me on LinkedIn. And then the best thing about it is if they just send me that connection request, I'm not playing Pokemon, right? I'm not trying to collect them all. I'm trying to collect a whole bunch of different, connection requests. That's what people do on LinkedIn. Send me a message on why you love Travis and Carol, or a funny story you heard them tell. Because then I can go back to y'all and go, dude, look at all these crazy stories I got from your audience on LinkedIn. And then we get to have a better relationship and have more conversations. So that's the best way to be able to do it. Look me up, Joshua B. Lee, LinkedIn. We'll have some fun.
Awesome.
Take us home, Carol.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us today, Joshua. And thank you all for joining us here today, our audience, as we continue to get to know successful entrepreneurs, what got them to where they are, the adversities they've overcome, and allow us to reveal what motivates them.
That's all for this episode of Titan Evolution Podcast. We hope this no-holds-barred conversation opened your eyes on what it takes to live a genuinely happy life according to your own terms. Now that you've treated yourself to such a refreshing discussion, you cannot listen to nonsense content anymore. Be sure not to miss an episode by subscribing to the show at TitanEvolutionPodcast.com. Don't forget to share the word so more people can be enlightened, informed, and entertained. Thank you for listening.